11:03, Friday, January 24th, 2025, Conference Championship weekend in the NFL. The latest on Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, and the soap opera that is the Phoenix Suns. Welcome into today's edition of The Lunch Break right here, KDUS AM 1060. Also on the KDUS AM 1060 app and on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel for those of you who like to see the visual product. You like to be involved with the show. You like to watch the show. You can do that over there as well. A happy Friday to you all. Jam-packed edition for you here today. And listen, you know the drill by now.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
I mean, come on. You know how this goes. I know how this goes. We don't have to do the pleasantries. We can just get right into it. Jimmy Butler, that's where we start today's show. It's where we're going to start every show, more than likely, between now and the February 6th NBA trade deadline, because that is where the Suns' focus remains. And where we start today is with the idea that maybe, perhaps, the Suns missed their window. No, not their championship window, their window to acquire Jimmy Butler, because it was yesterday, a little bit after we got off the air, Mark Spears of ESPN was on NBA Today. This is the quote that he offered up about Jimmy Butler's wish list. Quote, just out of Miami with the exception of Memphis, end quote. So wants out of Miami, but the only place he doesn't want to go is Memphis. Have the Suns missed their chance here? Because for the longest time, it was Phoenix and only Phoenix. We played you a Brian Windhorst cut. I think it was this week. It might have been last week. The days all blurred together when it comes to the soap opera. But we played you a cut from Brian Windhorst on his Hoop Collective podcast where he said that anything that is being put in front of Jimmy Butler right now that has nothing to do with Phoenix, he's not interested in. It's not worth putting it in front of him. Well, that tune appears to have changed. That tune appears to be different. Different song today. And the song today is telling us that Jimmy Butler just wants out of Phoenix. Now, is it because he is more willing to go other places, or has he seen the writing on the wall of how difficult it is going to be to land where he wants to end up, and that being Phoenix? Because we're going to talk a little bit later on in the show today about not just a 4-team trade, but now a rumored 5-team trade to get this over the finish line, to get Jimmy Butler to Phoenix, to get Bradley Beal someplace else. We're going to talk about that in hour number 2 of the show today. But I got to tell you, this doesn't feel like it's happening. It's extremely complicated. It's extremely complex. There are a lot of hurdles to clear, and now another one might have been put in the Suns' way because other teams can be quick on this. Other teams don't have the hurdles that the Suns have. Other teams can just call up Miami and say, we'll give you X, Y, and Z for Jimmy Butler, and Pat Riley can say, yep, send it into the league office. Where if Phoenix wants to get involved, is Bradley Beal going to waive his no-trade clause? Do you have somebody that's going to take Bradley Beal because we don't want Bradley Beal? What are you giving us? We have to agree to what other team? Way too complicated. Way too difficult. Other teams, if Jimmy's intentions are true, that he just wants to be out of Miami at this point, he is just done. Suspended for another 2 games yesterday by the team. Would take his total suspension this season up to 9 games that he would have missed because the team has suspended him. If it's true that he just wants out, if it's true that he just wants to go anywhere but Memphis, then I don't think the Suns have the upper hand that they used to have. Because a couple of days ago, if Jimmy was only going to Phoenix, and we know this because we know what his intentions were from all the media reports and the media leaks, but we also know this because of other leaks that have said other teams have been told, don't even bother. Don't even try. It's not happening. He doesn't want to go there. And so if that tune has changed, the Suns were dealing from, I don't want to call it a position of strength because they had their own set of circumstances to overcome, but they were dealing from a really nice place of Jimmy only wants to come here. Jimmy only wants to play for us. So it's going to be hard for other teams to be willing to part with prospects and draft picks and players and to jump through all the hoops to make this deal happen if they know it's a half-season rental for Jimmy. And he's just going to then become a thorn in their side because he'll pick up the player option and he'll do the same exact thing to ultimately just go someplace else because he doesn't want to be with us. So teams just backed away. They're just like, no, we're good. because it was Phoenix and only Phoenix. If it's no longer Phoenix, then they move to the back of the line. They move further away from this deal than they already currently sit. And think today how far they are from this deal. Think about how many things have to go down for Jimmy Butler to end up a Phoenix Sun. Think about what this team has to accomplish in a short amount of time. We're less than 2 weeks away now from the NBA trade deadline? Think about every hoop that this team has to jump through. Think about everything this team has to accomplish between now and then to put Jimmy Butler into the purple and orange. Think about it. And think about what all the other teams need to do. And I don't know who it's going to be, but just throw a team out there. Pick an NBA team that might want to add at the deadline. All of those teams, I can say with the utmost certainty, are in a better financial situation than the Phoenix Suns are in a better draft asset situation than the Phoenix Suns are better suited with young assets that Miami might be intrigued by than the Phoenix Suns are. Because that deal can be a one-for-one. Maybe you want to add in just a third team because that's seemingly what the NBA does. But it doesn't have to require a fourth or a fifth team. It doesn't have to require a bunch of picks moving all over the place. It doesn't require a no-trade clause because there's only 2 of them in the NBA. Doesn't require any of that nonsense. It requires 2 teams agreeing on a deal. And so if this report is true, then we might be at the beginning of the end of the Jimmy Butler dream. We might be at the beginning of the end of Jimmy Butler ending up on the Phoenix Suns. And maybe you started to think this way, the way I did, because they made the trade on Tuesday, trading the 2031 unprotected first to get 3 more draft picks. And yet, they didn't immediately have the deal lined up. They're still trying to figure this out. There's just rumors on different permutations of what this deal could look like. And we'll tell you what the latest version of this looks like. It's now a 5-team deal, and there's holes all over the place in it. But that's where we're at. We're now at a rumored 5-team deal for this to get over the finish line. So they made the deal on Tuesday evening. Wednesday rolled by. Thursday rolled by. We're now a little bit past 11 o'clock on Friday, and it's going to roll by, and the weekend might roll by. And they don't have a deal lined up. So those reports that said that they did this without a clear move in mind might end up being proven correct. That they made that move on Tuesday without knowing what Miami wanted in a deal. They made that trade not already having back channel with Miami. Hey, would you like these picks? Do these picks intrigue you? Or do these other picks intrigue you if we can get these picks available to us? Those conversations clearly haven't happened because a deal would have been done. If they made that move on Tuesday knowing that they had the assets to give to whoever it needed to go to, the 4th or 5th team involved, or to Miami, or however it needed to play out, if they knew that those were the assets that those other teams wanted, why hasn't a piece of paper been sent to the commissioner's office? Why isn't this deal done? Because all the Phoenix Suns did on Tuesday was just increase their odds. They just gave themselves more avenues out of this. But they still understood the hurdles that they needed to overcome. And so not having a deal done at this point, still having the Bradley Beal saga to figure out, and also if Jimmy Butler is softening his position on only wanting to go to Phoenix, I think Phoenix is at a disadvantage. I think the Suns ultimately end up becoming one of the worst landing spots for Jimmy Butler. If Jimmy Butler only wants to go to Phoenix, it's easy for Phoenix to take their time. It's easy for them to drag this out until February 6th to try to find a suitor for Bradley Beal. But now, if Jimmy all of a sudden is like, I want to be out of here, anywhere but Memphis, I don't care, and put aside your feelings on what Jimmy is doing. But if Jimmy is changing his tune, if Jimmy's now interested in going anywhere else, the Phoenix Suns no longer are the most attractive option. The reason why they were the most attractive option originally was because they were the only option. There are other teams that are going to have assets that are more attractive to Miami. The deal's going to end up being cleaner. It's going to involve less drama, less hoops to jump through. And I don't know if Pat Riley is thinking like this, but Jimmy wants to go to Phoenix. Pat Riley might say, that's the one thing I'm not going to do for you. I'll send you someplace else instead. And so if Jimmy is softening on that, then maybe Pat Riley can get what he wants out of this at the end of the road. He can get some type of haul back, and he also didn't cave to Jimmy and put him exactly where he wanted, which was being in Phoenix with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So the Suns might have missed their exclusive window. It wasn't really exclusive. It wasn't like a contractually exclusive window, but just because of the way Jimmy Butler was acting and the way Jimmy Butler and his people were telling other teams reportedly what they were willing to do and what they were not willing to do, where they were willing to go and not willing to go, it was Phoenix or bust. It's not Phoenix or bust anymore if we believe Mark Spears. It's anywhere but Memphis. That's a very different tune. That is a very different landscape. That is different than just where we were 24 hours ago on this program. Everything's different because all the teams are now in play. Any team that wants to jump into this mix. Now, are there going to be teams that line up? I don't know. A lot of money, wants a new contract extension. You clearly see the way he handles being disgruntled in Miami. Do you want to sign up for that? We talked about that yesterday. Is this just 4D chess by Jimmy, or do you want out? Or is it a warning sign of things to come? So there might be teams that look at this and say, no, not doing it. Not signing up for that. 480-864-1060 is the phone number if you want to hop into the conversation. Also got the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel as well. We've got everybody in there. There's a poll question in there today if you want to hop in over there. Do you want the Suns to trade for Jimmy Butler? Simple yes or no. The KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel is where you can vote in on that poll. Trust me, I get it, everybody. It's a conference championship Friday. You want to hear some football talk. I promise you. We are going to mix it up here today because normally we play the NFL music and we give you the NFL look ahead and the Schubert 6. We're doing it differently here today. Each game is getting its own block. It's going to have its nice room to breathe here today on the program. So a lot of football. We'll make our picks in hour number 2. We've got 2 picks to make, a 6-point and a 5-point play here for the conference championship. So if you're thinking it's a football Friday, where's my football? Don't worry. We're going to serve it up to you here over the course of the next 2 hours on this program. But on the other side, 2 numbers for you, 46 and 24. Why those 2 numbers will determine the rest of the Suns season. That's next in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can also join us on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. Michael over there says, I think I'm done with Jimmy. Not worth it anymore. Would just become a nightmare down the road. And I understand if that's how you feel today. I understand if you've seen all of this, if you've seen everything that's gone down here over the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, and you said, you know what, I'm good. I'm good. I'd rather go in a different direction. I'd rather see this team do something different with those draft picks that they acquired, those 3 picks that they got. I'd rather them do something different. I can understand if that's how you feel today. I gave you 2 numbers before the break. I said 46 and 24. Maybe you thought about it. Maybe you tried to guess what those numbers meant. Well, you don't have to worry any longer. I will tell you exactly what those numbers mean. 46. That was the number of wins that it took to be the 10 seed in the Western Conference last year. You had Oklahoma City and Denver lead the way at 57. You had Minnesota at 56, the Clippers 51, Dallas at 50. So those 5 teams all in the 50-win club. You had the Suns sneak in there, right? Just got into the 6th spot, avoided the play-in tournament at 49 wins. But then you had the Pelicans at 49 as the 7th seed, the Lakers at 47 wins as the 8th seed, and then your 9 and 10 seed was Sacramento and Golden State, who both ended the year 46 and 36. So 46. That was the number it took last year to be in the play-in tournament. So what does 24 mean, everybody? That's how many wins the Suns would need the rest of the way. Correct me if I'm wrong, Producer Dylan, but if I take their 22 wins that they currently have and I add another 24 wins, that gets us to 46. Does that math check out? That's good math here on a Friday? Oh, I got the thumbs up. Okay, that's great. Good to know that our math is working here on a Friday. They need to win 24 games the rest of the way to match last year's win total of the 10 seed. Now, is it going to necessarily require 46? You don't know. It's give or take. But let's just look at last year's numbers. Let's just look at last year's math. It took 46 wins to get in to the play-in tournament last year, to be the 10 seed. That means with their remaining 39 games is what they have left on the calendar, they would have to go 24 and 15. 24 and 15 over their last 39 games to make the postseason or to hit 46 wins, which is what it took last year. Now, maybe it doesn't take 46. Maybe it takes 45. Maybe it takes 44. But if you just look at last year and what it took 46. And remember yesterday and the day before that, we told you how difficult the Suns' schedule was, and we told you 4th hardest schedule in the NBA. How about this? It's an ever-evolving game we play here today, everybody. The Suns now with 39 games left, and after everyone else has played games, their schedule has jumped up to number 1 because they got rid of that game against Brooklyn off the ledger, right? And so now all those hard games get weighted a little more, and you lose one of the easy opponents that you have left. It is now the hardest schedule the rest of the way. So a team that in 43 games so far, right, 22 and 21, they've been a 500 middle-of-the-road team. They've been just even, 22 and 21 in 43 games. With the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA, remember, it was the 4th hardest just a couple days ago, but because Brooklyn falls off the schedule and teams' records are constantly changing, it's the hardest schedule in the NBA the rest of the way. That team, who went 22 and 21 over their first 43, has to find a way to go 24 and 15 over their remaining 39, which is the hardest 39 remaining in the NBA, to just match last year's 10 seed, which, by the way, would be 3 games worse than where they finished last year. And I'll tell you, this team feels a lot more than 3 games worse than last year's team. I don't mean to throw cold water on everything that we're talking about with Jimmy Butler and Bradley Beal, but this is why I'm so pessimistic about them doing this move. It's why I don't think they should make these moves. It's why I think trading the 2031 pick and going all in for Jimmy Butler would be a mistake. The numbers are just not on their side. Are they going to all of a sudden be a different basketball team with the hardest schedule the rest of the way? Are they going to all of a sudden find a stretch that's different? Are they going to all of a sudden be better than what they've been, which is a middle-of-the-road team? Because middle of the road would be 20 and 20. That would be 4 wins short. And that's 20 and 20 with the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA. And we've told you what that looks like. 2 against Oklahoma City, 2 against Boston, 3 against Houston, 3 against Memphis, 1 against the Cavs, 1 against the Knicks. I'll tell you, I've watched this team play against the Cavs. Wasn't great. Did you feel good watching that game on Monday against the Cavaliers? Did you enjoy what you saw? because you got one more with them. Looking through their schedule now. Remember that game against Memphis? I remember it. Already lost to the Knicks once this year. Lost to the Thunder once this year already. All these teams that are going to pop up on your schedule again, you've played them and you've lost. Boom. Here you go. Toughest 39 games of the season. If you basically go 500, we'll round up to 40. That's 20-20. That's not enough. That doesn't get you to what last year's 10 seed ultimately got you. Now, the cool part about this is we can do our daily update. We can tell you what the Phoenix Suns' current playoff probabilities are via, I'm going to call them our good friends because we reference them all the time, at Basketball Reference. Yesterday it was what? I think it was 8%, 8.7%. It's back down to 5.7% after yesterday. So there's your daily update on the playoff probabilities for the Phoenix Suns, the 5.7%. Their projected finishing record, according to these outcomes on Basketball Reference, 38 wins and 43 losses. They have the 10 seed being the 42-39 Golden State Warriors. So let's, just for argument's sake, say it's that number that they have to get to. So not 46 like it was last year. Let's say it's 42, what these projections say. That is 20 wins out of your next 39 games. That's 20-19. You have to continue to play 500 basketball. You have to do exactly what you've been doing, but you have to do so with the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA. And so with the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA and the way this team's playing, you can't fault them if they don't get to 20 wins. And that's if 42 is the number. That's if that's what it's going to take to get in. If it's more than that, it gets even harder. 46 and 24. Those are your numbers. 46 was what it took last year. 24 is how many wins it would take the remainder of this year. Ask yourself this question. The hardest schedule remaining in the NBA, I referenced a handful of the games. The games I referenced, let's do some quick math. 1 against the Cavs, 2 against the Thunder, that's 3. 2 against the Celtics, that's 5. 3 against the Rockets, that's 8. 3 against Memphis, that's 11. 1 against the Knicks, that's 12. 12 of their 39 games are against those teams. What's their record in just those 12 games? Have they beaten any of those teams already this year? They have a win against any of those teams. I'd have to look for sure. I know they haven't beaten the Cavs yet. They lost to Memphis already this year. They lost to the Knicks already this year. They lost to Oklahoma City already this year. I've watched all those games. 12 of their 39. They going to go 500 in that stretch? They're going to go 6-6? The math ain't mathin'. The math's pretty simple here. It's an uphill battle. They have to do exactly what they've been doing, but with an increase in competition, with the hardest schedule left in the NBA. So is it possible? Yes, mathematically it's there. But there's a reason why they have a 5.7% chance of making the playoffs. They won 49 games a year ago. They went 49-33. Their projection right now is to finish with 38. That's 16 more. That's 16 more wins than where they currently stand right now. That would be winning 16 of their 39. That would be going 16-23 to do some quick math. That gets them to 38. They need to find another 4 potentially to get into the playoffs with that schedule. I don't know. The math just doesn't math for me. So no, I don't want them to trade for Jimmy Butler. No, I don't want them to trade the 2031 unprotected pick. Well, they already crossed that line. We're past the point of no return there. They turned that pick into 3 picks. So they're going to do something with those picks. No matter what, something is going to happen with those draft picks. Why? Because they're going to try to give this a go. Well, if they are, these are the raw numbers. 46-24. Potentially 42-20. This basketball team in their final 39 games probably has to find at least 20 victories. And so with 12 of the 39 that I just outlined, and no, there are other teams in there that are solid. There are other teams in there that could give the Suns fits. I watched this team. They lost to Atlanta. They lost to Charlotte. They played Detroit close. They almost blew it against Washington, who they play tomorrow. Like, there are teams that aren't in the toughest remaining opponents that could cause fits for the Suns. They don't have wiggle room. We've told you this. There's no margin for error. They can't slip up. They can't drop one to Washington. They can't drop to Portland. I'm just reading their easiest opponents. They've got 2 against the Bulls, 2 against the Pelicans, the Raptors, 1 against the Jazz and the Wizards. You can't drop those games. You can't. The math tells you what you need to do. The math tells you there's got to be 20 more wins. You've got to be above 500, more than likely. So you've got to get to 42 somehow at a minimum. That's 20 more wins. You've got 39 games. You have to play 1 game above 500 the rest of the way, which is what you've done up until this point. And you have to do so facing the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA. Your strength of schedule, a 534 winning percentage. The teams you are playing the rest of the way, you add it all up, it's a 534 strength of schedule, the hardest in the NBA. That is the uphill climb that this team faces. Does Jimmy Butler help them with that? Potentially. He doesn't help with all of it. And we told you in the first segment how likely that is at this point. $39 games left on the schedule, a 534 strength of schedule, and you need to find at least 20 wins the rest of the way. So play everybody's favorite game. We do this when the NFL schedule comes out, the win-loss game, right? Do it. Do the exercise. Look at the Suns schedule. Be honest with yourself. See if you can get to 20. If you get to 20, then maybe the play-in. Think about this for a second. That's just to be in the play-in tournament would be 20 wins. This team was the 6th seed last year. They won 49 games. Think about what they would have to do to get to that number. The math doesn't math anymore for this team. I promised you some football. I'm going to deliver on that promise on the other side. 480-864-1060, always the phone number for you to hop in. Also got the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel as well. If a former Sun Devil and a former Cardinals coach are going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, how are they going to pull off the upset? It's next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. It's conference championship week. We will know on Monday who will be playing for the Lombardi Trophy. And instead of doing our NFL look ahead in its normal way, where I play the fancy music and we break down every game, since there's only 2 games, I thought, why don't we give each game its due here today on the show? Why don't we discuss everything surrounding these games this weekend? And we'll go in chronological order. We'll start with the Commanders and Eagles, and there are some interesting Valley ties here, right? Jaden Daniels, the quarterback, started his collegiate career with the Sun Devils of Arizona State. Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, formerly the head coach here for the Arizona Cardinals. So there are some Arizona-related ties to at least the Commanders here in this game. The NFC East clash between a 12-win Commanders team, a 14-win Eagles team, a rookie quarterback going on the road to continue what has been a road journey for this Commanders team all playoff long, and now they are just 1 win away from playing in the Super Bowl. And so, do they have the recipe to pull off an upset? And I believe that there is a recipe to being able to win on the road as an underdog in the playoffs, to be that upset road team. And you don't need all of these things, but you need a couple of them. You have to have the coaching battle on your side. You have to have a good running game. You have to have a good defense. And you have to have a quarterback who doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes, doesn't have to be Joe Burrow, doesn't have to be Josh Allen, but he's got to be able to make you 5 to 7 throws over the course of a game. You need a quarterback that can make those really key 5 to 7 throws. And I'm not talking fitting it into a tight window down the sideline. I'm talking 3rd and 6. This is to extend a drive, to turn a 7-point lead into a 10-point lead, and he is able to be calm under pressure, hit that quick slant route, pick up 8 or 9, keep a drive moving. Those types of key moments, when you know sitting on your couch, this is a big spot, this first down would be really important, it would keep the clock churning. Those are the throws I'm talking about. Situational throws. You got to have a quarterback who can make those 5 to 7 key throws in a game. That's my recipe. That's the recipe for pulling off a road upset. So do the Commanders have the ingredients to follow the recipe? Do they have the stuff in the cabinet, in the pantry, to be able to follow the recipe that I've outlined to pull off the upset this weekend? Let's go through it. The coach. They have Dan Quinn. You know, his time in Seattle as the defensive coordinator, his time as the head coach in Atlanta, revitalizing his career as the DC in Dallas, leading up until this moment. And I go back and forth on whether or not they have this piece of the ingredient, this piece of the recipe, because he's done wonders this year. He's been fantastic. What he's been able to get out of this group has been fantastic. You have a brand new OC. You're in your first year there. You've got a rookie quarterback. There's a lot of new ownership, new general manager, new coach, new offensive coordinator, rookie quarterback, a lot of new. It's hard to hit the ground running the way Washington did and to have this type of success to where we're talking about them in an NFC championship game. But I remember what happened in that Atlanta Super Bowl. I remember what happened when the pressure got to Dan Quinn. I remember that moment. And so you have to ask yourself, if those moments come up again here in the NFC Championship game, is he well equipped to handle them this time around? Did he learn from those mistakes, or will the pressure get to him again? It's the big question mark. So I'll put a question mark next to that one. I don't know. Running game? Truthfully, they don't. Jaden Daniels is their running game. Jaden Daniels carries a lot of the workload for this team running the football. I mean, he extends plays. He is a great runner, but you need to have a running game. You need to be able to have those chunk plays out of the backfield from your running back to force the defense to respect the run element, to open things up in the passing game. So I would say no, they don't have that element. They have it a little bit with Jaden Daniels, but they don't have what I think of when you're going on the road, we're playing tough defense, we're winning in the trenches, and we're just going to pound the ball with our running back, right? 4 or 5 yards a clip, we're just going to grind this game to a halt, we're going to just chew the clock. We don't have that. And then the defense. They allowed 31 points last week to Detroit. Their defense has been a question mark. It was a question mark against Tampa Bay. It was a question mark against Detroit. You know that Dan Quinn's going to have his hand on putting together a defensive game plan. That one's up in the air. The quarterback, who can make those 5 to 7 throws? Oh, yeah. They've got that. Jaden Daniels can make those 5 to 7 throws or those 5 to 7 plays if you want to give him more credit for what he does with his legs. They have a quarterback who can make those 5 to 7 throws or plays over the course of a football game that allows you to win. Check. They have that part of the recipe. They might have the coaching part. I don't think they have the running game part. And they might have the defense part, but I'm leaning towards no. So they have one sure thing. Now, of all of these, of all 4 pieces of the recipe, the one you would like to be a sure thing is the quarterback who can make the 5 to 7 throws. Because let's say he makes 10 to 12 throws or plays. That can override a running game. That can override a defense that might be giving up chunk plays on the other side and allowing points. Because if you have a quarterback that doesn't just make 5 to 7 big throws or big plays over the course of a game, but can make 10 to 12 of those plays, you can override some other parts of this recipe. You can call the recipe on the fly. I don't have this. I'm going to substitute a little of this, and it's going to taste the same. That's what the Commanders have in Jaden Daniels. They have that guy. In fact, and I don't know if this is a hot take to some, they have the best quarterback on the field on Sunday. The best quarterback on the field in the NFC Championship game is Jaden Daniels. They have the quarterback battle. Check mark towards them. They have the guy. And no, it's not just because of Jalen Hurts' knee injury, although he's all good to go. It's because Jaden Daniels makes plays that I don't see Jalen Hurts making. Jaden Daniels is playing with a confidence that I don't see Jalen Hurts playing with. Jalen Hurts is solid, good quarterback. Could win a championship for Philadelphia. They're one win away from going to the Super Bowl. But the quarterback battle, the team favored in that quarterback battle is Washington. They have the better quarterback. And so this isn't the tried and true recipe. They don't meet those requirements. I think the coach is a question mark. I think the defense is a question mark. I think the running game is non-existent. I think they have the quarterback. They don't have your traditional road upset recipe. They are not following the recipe the way that I've envisioned it. But when you have a quarterback that is as special as Jaden Daniels, you can make up your own recipe. You are Gordon Ramsay. You are a top-tier chef that can say, you know what? I'm calling an audible. I'm changing the recipe a little bit, and it's going to be a 5-star meal. And so if you're looking at this through the lens of the true traditional methods to trying to be a road upset, or at least what I think the tried and true methods are, you got to be able to keep the other team off the board. You got to keep their crowd out of it with a good defense. You got to run the ball to keep their offense off the field. You got to make those big plays, and you got to be able to have a coach that on those 4th down calls knows what he's doing, knows when to take the points, knows when to push the envelope a little bit, and is able to manage a game. It's why I picked the Rams the way that I did last week. It's why I picked them plus the 6, and I said, don't be surprised if they win the game outright, because I thought they checked every box against Philadelphia. Coach, absolutely, Sean McVay. Running game, Kyron Williams, one of the best in the game. A defense, they got after the quarterback. They can put up some consistent pressure. And then the quarterback that can make the 5 to 7 throws, you betcha. Watch that throw that Matt Stafford made to Puka Nacua on the failed go-ahead drive there at the end of the game. They checked all the boxes. They, truthfully, check the boxes more than Washington does. But Washington has something else. They've got Jaden Daniels. And so Jaden Daniels can maybe override a poor coaching decision. He might be able to override a defense that didn't get that big stop. The thing that you would push back on is that too much pressure on a rookie. Is that too much pressure on a kid playing in the NFC Championship game? You might be right. And I'm not going to tip my hand on what the pick is. But if you're going to pick Washington, if Washington plus 6 was going to be the official Schubert 6 play, you would have to feel really good about the recipe that I just outlined, or at least the alternative recipe. You'd have to feel like Washington can do that. If you don't, you pick Philadelphia in this game. Because the experience, been there, done that. They have the running back who can just grind the game. You know what, Jaden Daniels, you're just going to sit on the sidelines. And then we're just going to break a big, huge, explosive chunk play that's going to get our crowd into it. Oh, yeah, we've got A.J. Brown. Oh, yeah, Jalen Hurts in the tush push. We're just going to be able to keep drives going. Oh, yeah, by the way, we've got a pretty good defense that sacked Matt Stafford 5 times last week. Yeah. We check all the boxes. That's what you're going up against. And so if they are going to pull off the upset this weekend, you have to ask yourself, do they fulfill the recipe? And if they don't, do you think Jaden Daniels is special enough to be able to lead this team on the road in Philadelphia against a 14-win Eagle team that just barely missed out on being the 1 seed and having home field throughout the whole playoffs, although they ended up having it anyway? That's the question you have to answer between now and Sunday. I don't get to wait until Sunday. I have to tell you my answer a little bit later on in the show. So in hour number 2, you are going to hear from me, the Schubert 6. We're doing it a little differently. It's going to be a part of the leftovers today. So end of the show, my 2 Schubert 6 plays will be a part of the leftovers to close up the show. So if you want those, if you've been following along, you've been doing pretty well overall the last 2 months or so following along. So if you're interested in those will come during the leftovers in hour number 2 of the program. But coming up on the other side, 480-864-1060 is the phone number. We'll go back to the Phoenix Suns because they've already crossed one line this week. I mean, there's no way they would cross another, right? That's next. The lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Well, on Tuesday, the Suns crossed one line. A line we didn't think they were going to cross. That being trading the 2031 unprotected first-round pick. They wouldn't dare cross another one, right? Well, let's break this down. Evan Sidri, who covers the NBA for Forbes, put out a tweet yesterday that I saw that I was pretty intrigued by. And I'm going to read you the tweet exactly how Evan puts it on Twitter, and I will give you my immediate reaction when I saw the tweet. The Suns have no interest in a trade for Jimmy Butler that would involve sending out rookie wing Ryan Dunn. Phoenix already views Dunn as an instrumental piece to their pursuit for a championship. Dunn permanently replaced Bradley Beal in Phoenix's starting lineup recently. And my immediate reaction was, we're talking about moving Ryan Dunn? Like anybody's talking about that? That's even something that is being brought up? Somebody's asking for Ryan Dunn? No. We're not trading one of the young pieces that if this If all of this goes sideways, he's the one guy that you want to have probably around Devin Booker for the next iteration of the Phoenix Suns. No, we're not doing that. Please. But they've already crossed one line. They already moved the 2031 unprotected first. So I can't tell you that everything's off the table. I certainly would hope that they stop at this. That this is where they say, not happening, no more. We are going all in, but this is a bridge too far. This is something we are not willing to do. I hope that that is the case. Now, that's not the only thing Evan reported over the last couple of hours or so. And he's done a lot in regards to the 4 or 5 team permutations or everything that's going on. So I'll give you a bunch of what Evan has said, and then we can discuss. But Shams reported that the Heat don't want long-term contracts in return in a Jimmy Butler deal. And that there's a 5-team trade going around. And we'll talk about this probably at the top of the hour. A 5-team trade going around. That's the latest permutation of trying to get this deal done. But you've got Windhorst saying today that the Heat do not want salary back in a Jimmy Butler trade that goes past 2026. So they want money on their books for this year and maybe next year, but that's it. The Bucks are shopping Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis. And again, I just don't know how we get to a place where all of this works out the way the Suns want it to. Because if the Heat don't want long-term money back, then they're not taking Bradley Beal's contract. We know that. But then they're also not taking back other albatross contracts. And there's one in particular that's out there that's being rumored. And again, we'll dive into this a little bit more in hour number 2 of the program. But Zach LaVine's name's come up to help facilitate all of this. But he's got money for this year, for next year, and the year after that. You're paying him through all the way through 2027, so he wouldn't check that box. And so if Ryan Dunn is going to need to be a part of this, and I've seen some projected trades that include Ryan Dunn going out, no thank you. I would rather take the 3 draft picks and send Bradley Beal someplace else and maybe not get something back, but get the salary relief. And I would maybe try to get Yusuf Nurkic and that money off the books. And I would maybe take one of those other picks and try to acquire somebody. I would do everything in my power to improve this team. But the one thing I would not do right now, the one thing that is a non-negotiable for me, the one thing I'm not interested in considering is trading Ryan Dunn. Because yes, the Suns can be all in. And yes, they are more all in than I can't think of another franchise that is going to the lengths that the Phoenix Suns are going to try to win a championship. Money, resources, just a complete, they're ignoring the future completely. It doesn't exist to them. 2028, 29, 30, 31, it's not real to the Phoenix Suns. They're treating this like it's a video game. That at some point they'll just be able to just restart the franchise mode or go to a new team and not have to deal with the ramifications of all this. That's how they're operating. But the one thing you can't do is move a young player like Ryan Dunn. Because even if you win a championship right now, you're going to want to have sustained success. You're going to want to start a new chapter of the Phoenix Suns. And guess what? Ryan Dunn is going to be a part of that. As a rookie, he's already been thrusted into the starting lineup, and he has done very well there. He has thrived. He has shown that he is an NBA caliber player. He is an NBA starter in this league. Had his first double-double the other night. His shot has been so much better to go along with his defense. There is zero reason to even entertain the possibility. But once you trade the 2031 unprotected first, all bets are off. I can't definitively sit here and tell you that Ryan Dunn is guaranteed to be a member of the Phoenix Suns. I hope Ryan Dunn is guaranteed to be a member of the Phoenix Suns. I hope that we don't get anywhere close to Ryan Dunn leaving the Phoenix Suns. Because again, he is an important piece to right now, but he's also an important piece to the future. And I know the future doesn't matter to anybody in that Suns front office, but it should when it comes to this kid. It should when it comes to this player. Because you know what? This team doesn't have a lot of assets. This team doesn't have a lot of draft capital. This team is going to be picking towards the back part of the first round for the foreseeable future. And you know what? It's really difficult to draft and develop players in that part of the draft. If you know what you're doing, you can pull it off, but it's not always a guarantee. Some draft classes aren't very good. Some draft classes aren't very deep, but you know what? You hit the home run. You picked in the mid-20s and you landed Ryan Dunn. You traded down and still landed Ryan Dunn. You proved that you can draft, develop, and identify the talent. You're not going to be able to do that every year, no matter how good you are, no matter how awesome your scouting department is, no matter how awesome you think your player development system is. No two draft classes are alike. So you did it. You found the late first-round value that everybody always wants to search for. There is no guarantee that the 2025 draft will be the same, the 2026 draft will be the same, the 2027 draft will be the same. So when you hit on one of those late round lottery tickets, when you hit on one of those late round selections, don't just give it away for nothing. Don't just give it away in the hopes that this season could be something. We told you the math earlier. We told you what this team needed to do, and guess what? Ryan Dunn's a key part of that. Ryan Dunn is going to be a key part of them finding the math, of them finding the 20 to 25 wins that they're going to need to find between now and the end of the season over their next 39 games to make it into the playoffs, to make it into at least a play-in tournament. If you, truthfully, and I mean this honestly, if you trade Ryan Dunn, then when Kevin Durant and Jimmy Butler are no longer here, and when Devin Booker is on the backside of his career, there is zero reason to watch Suns basketball. Because if you're willing to move the 2031 unprotected and you're willing to move Ryan Dunn, then there is not an asset or a player that you draft or get or sign, or there's nobody that's off limits. And the other side of this, when it all crashes and burns, because at some point it is, just because Kevin Durant's not going to be here for very much longer. If you get Jimmy Butler, he's not going to be here for the long run. It's going to be ugly. You thought the follow the timeline was rough? In an NBA championship contender compared to what it's going to look like for the Phoenix Suns. So please don't do this. I saw the tweet the other day, and I'm like, wait, Ryan Dunn's name's coming up in this stuff? We're even entertaining this? That would be an immediate hang-up of the phone for me. You've already crossed a bridge too far for me. The 2031 pick, I would not have moved. Because now, even if it's not Jimmy Butler, you have to do something with that. Because you've already given up on what the asset is. The 2031 unprotected was the lottery ticket to potentially get out of this, because that might be the year that you're bad and it might line up with a generational talent, and boom, you can restart the cycle. You've given up on that. You now have just gotten a bunch of pick swaps, and you're always going to be picking at the back part of the draft. You have to turn that into players that can help you right now. So whether it's Jimmy Butler or whether it's somebody else, that's what you have to do. You can't just now let February 6th come and go and just keep those 3 picks. Those 3 picks mean nothing to you if they don't turn into players. Because then what did you do it for? What did you do it for? What did you trade the 2031 for? To give yourself more ammunition? To give yourself more picks to move? And then did what with them? Because then you wasted this year. Because you and I both know this Suns team's not winning a championship, at least not the way they're currently playing, at least not the way they're currently constructed. The hope and dream of them winning a championship involves a lot of moves. It involves change. It's why it's hard for us to look at this team right now. It's hard for us to watch these games and really get excited about what they're doing, because you and I both know that if they're going to make a championship run, it's going to be with a different roster. The team that they rolled out against Brooklyn the other night is not the team that they're going to have after February 6th if they're going to make a bunch of moves. It's not going to be Bradley Beal. It might not be Grayson Allen. It might not be Royce O'Neal. It might look completely different. It probably will look completely different if they do stuff before February 6th. But the one player that absolutely cannot walk out that door is Ryan Dunn. Because Ryan Dunn is more so than Devin Booker. Not to say he's better than Devin Booker, but more so than Devin Booker, more so than Kevin Durant, more so than anybody else on this roster. He is your last piece that fits the short term and the long term. He is the last guy on the roster, the last asset you have as an organization that allows you to think that the future is not completely bleak. And so if you commit to that, we have spent a lot of time this week talking about the team being set back a decade. If you choose to include Ryan Dunn in this, might be longer than a decade, truthfully. I don't know. I don't know how you continue watching this team if they trade Ryan Dunn. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to. This is just one person putting it out there that the Phoenix Suns have said that they're not interested. And that's good that that's what they're saying. I just hate that the topics even come up. I hate that it's even a conversation. No. I'm not moving Ryan Dunn. I hit a home run. I did the thing that everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to hit the back half of the first-round pick that's an NBA starter. Everybody wants somebody that's a key contributor in the back half of the first round. Everybody longs for that. I did it. I made the pick. I traded down. I got additional draft capital, and I still landed the guy in the 20s that could help my team. And now, less than a half a season in, see you later? No, can't do that. Hour number 1 of the program in the books. On the other side, we start hour number 2. 4 teams now. 4 teams. Come on, everybody does 4-team trades. How about a 5-team trade? Yes, I will give you the latest rumored trade involving the Phoenix Suns and their pursuit of Jimmy Butler, and it involves 5 teams. Next, the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Hour number 2, the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Appreciate you being here. We've got you one more hour here. It's the weekend. How about this? How about a 4-team trade? No, that doesn't do something for you? All right, how about a 5-team trade? How about a deal that ends with the Suns getting Jimmy Butler, The Milwaukee Bucks getting Zach LaVine. The Bulls getting Bradley Beal and draft capital. The Heat ending up with Chris Middleton, draft capital, and additional assets. And then a fifth team taking on all the unwanted salaries and getting some draft capital of their own. How about that? Does that do anything for you? That is a new framework that is being thrown around. Because remember, we were dealing this week with a 4-team deal. And that 4-team deal had Milwaukee ending up with Bradley Beal. We played you the cut the other day. Bradley Beal and the Milwaukee Bucks. That link, non-existent, not real, so you have to take them off the table. And truthfully, the only other team that has a salary big enough to be able to make all of this work is Chicago and Zach LaVine. And so here's where I stand with this, okay? Let's go through each of these teams and see, do they want this deal? The Suns get Jimmy Butler. Well, okay, they would want that, right? That's what the end goal is here. The Bucks, Zach LaVine. Do they want Zach LaVine? Do they want $46 million for the next 3 seasons? Is that what they want to sign up for? I don't know. They don't want Bradley Beal. Now, if they don't want Bradley Beal, why do they not want Bradley Beal? Is it the salary? Because Zach LaVine's making almost the same amount. Is it the position? Well, they kind of play the same position. What is it? So if their reasoning for not wanting Bradley Beal could also be the same reason for not wanting Zach LaVine. So the Bucks, big question mark. The Bulls, Bradley Beal and draft capital. Well, okay, the Bulls get out of the Zach LaVine business. They get out of that money, but then they just take on more money and different money in the form of Bradley Beal. Do they want that? If they're going to trade Zach LaVine, the hope would be to get out of that money. And instead, they're going to replace it with Bradley Beal, who, again, they have a no-trade clause, so they can't move him. And, oh, by the way, does he want to go there? Now, his college coach, Billy Donovan's there, so there's all sorts of different connections for why he would want to go there. But would he want to go to Chicago? Does Chicago want him? Bunch of question marks there. The Heat, Chris Middleton, additional assets, draft capital. Well, guess what? The Chris Middleton part, I'm sure they would like that. But what are those additional assets, and what is that draft capital? Because you can throw out a term, draft capital, and you can throw out a term, additional assets. It depends on how the Miami Heat view those assets. Do those assets include Ryan Dunn? Do they include other young players that other teams need to include in the deal that they're not willing to include? Maybe Miami doesn't like those players. The draft capital, maybe they don't like those picks. Maybe those teams aren't willing to give up those picks. So you can say that out loud, but you got to make all this work. And then you need the fifth team. And what's the fifth team going to do? Well, they're going to take on some of the other salaries that are going to be needed to make this work. And so maybe Bobby Portis and his money leaves Milwaukee. Or maybe Yusuf Nurkic's money goes somewhere in this deal. Or Pat Connaughton's money goes somewhere in this deal. Is there a team that's going to want to take on those contracts? Is there a team that's going to want to take on that money? And are they going to get the necessary draft capital to make taking on that money worth their while? All I see here are more hoops to jump through. All I see here are more ways for this deal to fall apart. More ways for this deal to not happen. Do we know if Milwaukee wants Zach LaVine? Do we know if Miami would want Zach LaVine? Do we know if the Bulls would want Bradley Beal? Those are the questions that need to be answered. Because if any, not all of them, if the answer to any of those questions is no, then you don't have a deal. And you don't have Jimmy Butler, and you still have Bradley Beal. If at any moment the answer, I'm sure many of you out there have seen these. You know the flow charts that people put out on the internet? There's a bunch of yes or no questions, right? That is how we need to view the Suns ending up with Jimmy Butler. And if at any point, any of the 400 questions that are going to be asked along the way, if any of them are no, Jimmy Butler is not a Phoenix Sun. Any one of them. Does this team want Bradley Beal? No. Okay, not happening. Does Bradley Beal want to go to this team? Nope, not happening. Does this team want Zach LaVine? Nope, not happening. Does this team want this? Nope. If the answer to any question along the road is no, the entire Jenga stack falls apart. It doesn't happen. There is no trade. Bradley Beal doesn't go anywhere. Jimmy Butler at least isn't going to the Phoenix Suns. And this wraps us back to how we open today's show. If Jimmy Butler is more willing and more open to going anywhere out of Miami, as long as it's not Memphis, there are easier ways to get this over the finish line. There are easier ways for the Heat to get back what they want. They want win-now players, and they want assets, and they don't want to have a lot of money on their books. So if this deal can't happen, because at any point somebody says no, there's a lot easier pathways for the Suns, or for the Heat, to move Jimmy Butler and get themselves out of the Jimmy Butler business. And I've said this from the get-go. It's hard to do multi-team trades, man. It's hard to do regular trades. It's hard for two teams to get involved and line up on needs and compensation and players and salaries and everything just for two teams. You've got 5 teams potentially, 4 teams potentially, and a no-trade clause, and a lot of salaries to match, and teams not wanting to take on salaries, and teams needing certain types of draft picks back, and certain assets, win-now assets. Good luck finding a 5-team deal that makes everybody happy. Good luck. You ever to get together with a group of friends and you try to figure out where you want to go for dinner? And nobody wants to. Yeah, that's what it's like for the Phoenix Suns right now trying to trade for Jimmy Butler. It's you and your friends, your group of friends, trying to figure out in the group chat where you're going for dinner tonight. Somebody wants pizza. Somebody wants to get Chinese food. Somebody wants to check out this new spot. You can't agree. And if you can't get everybody to agree, then you're not meeting up somewhere. And so if the Phoenix Suns can't get everybody in line here, if they can't get everybody on the same page to where everybody feels happy with the decision, then guess what? Nobody's going out. Nobody's meeting up at the pizza place. Nobody's meeting up at the new Italian restaurant. Nobody's doing any of that. Everybody's sitting at home, ordering off a DoorDash, and not hanging out with their friends. And you're just going to, or eat the old leftovers that you have in the fridge. So everybody's going to keep their asset that they don't want. Everybody's going to keep their draft picks that they were willing to. Because if you can't all agree on what this looks like, then nobody's going to get what they want. It's hard for me in my house to agree on what we want for food. There's 3 of us. We've got 5 NBA franchises that are going to get together and try to agree on trade compensation. No, it's not happening. It's just not happening. And if I'm wrong, I'll be right here on the air to tell you I'm surprised. Kudos to everybody involved for getting this over the finish line. I'll be impressed. Truthfully, I would be very happy to be wrong because I would just be impressed that they pulled it off. 5 teams, all feeling like they won the trade, all feeling like they got something out of the deal. Not that just they were brought in to be a part of it to help other teams out. They have to feel like they got something out of the deal. So this current iteration, Suns, Bucks, Bulls, Heat, and then a 5th team, is everybody going to feel like they got what they needed out of the deal? And then, oh, by the way, on top of it, there's a 6th person because Bradley Beal basically counts as an entity all to himself because he has a no-trade clause that completely ends any conversation. So if he's not interested in going to Chicago, if the cold weather isn't really intriguing to him, then he's not going to Chicago and this deal isn't happening. So I just don't see a world where 5 teams can get together and agree on compensation. I can't see a world where 4 teams get together and agree on compensation. I don't see a world where this gets done. I don't see a world where Jimmy Butler ends up on the Phoenix Suns. I don't see a world where Bradley Beal's going elsewhere and the Phoenix Suns get what they want out of a deal. I just don't see it. Because a team's going to ask for the moon. A team's going to ask for the stars. A team is going to ask for all sorts of different things. And if one team isn't willing to do it or another team isn't willing to do it, then you aren't getting a deal done. And so that's where we sit on Friday, January 24th. And let me just check the show rundown here real quick. No, I think we're good. This is the last time on today's show that we are going to talk about the Phoenix Suns. Last time. So on Monday when we get back here, we'll have a basketball game to break down because they play Washington over the weekend. We potentially, I don't think it's going to happen, but if they do get this over the finish line, it might come in the next couple of days. We'll have a trade to talk about. But if we get in here on Monday and nothing has happened, then we are getting closer and closer to the NBA trade deadline coming and going, and we get closer and closer to this not happening altogether. So that's what's on the table for Monday's show. And oh, by the way, they play Washington tomorrow. One of those easy games remaining on their schedule. Remember we talked about hardest schedule in the NBA? Well, this is one of the ones you have to have because this is part of that sliver that says easiest opponents remaining. You can't give those ones away. And you almost gave this one away. You almost lost the last time you played Washington. So, don't give this one away. Just like we told you not to give the one away in Brooklyn, and you got the blowout victory. Don't give this one away. Don't ruin this opportunity. You've got 39 left. We told you need about 20 of them. Put one in the column. Put one in the bucket. Make it 19 that you have left to go. 480-864-1060 is the phone number. If you want to hop into the conversation here today about the Phoenix Suns, we're mostly done with them, but if you want to take us in that direction, we can obviously pivot and go back towards the Phoenix Suns and everything with Jimmy Butler and Bradley Beal. And if perhaps something happens in the next 45 minutes, obviously we will bring it to you here on the air. But in hour number one, we talked about the NFC Championship game. How about we talk about the AFC Championship game? Are they inevitable? Or are the Bills going to do what has felt like the impossible? That's next, the lunch break, KDUS, AM 1060. Welcome back in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can take the show with you on the go. You can take us with you on the go. So make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app today. A bunch of different ways for you to get involved with the show. Maybe you're new school. You don't love the AM signal. Okay, I got options for you. You got the KDUS AM 1060 app. You got 100.7 HD2. You've got the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube stream. That's not an excuse. Okay, you better be here, be a part of the show, be a part of the lunch break here. I don't want to hear it. So download the KDUS AM 1060 app today, or the various other ways that I mentioned for you to get involved with the lunch break and join us. We previewed in hour number one the NFC Championship game between the Commanders and the Eagles, and now we can talk about the AFC Championship game, where before the season, I think if you looked at it, this would have been your prediction, right? You would have said, Chiefs-Bills, because those are the two teams that have played each other quite a bit in the playoffs the last couple of years. You wouldn't have been that surprised with those two teams meeting up, and so it's the one-seed Kansas City Chiefs, who haven't lost at home all season long, hosting the 13-4 Buffalo Bills. Kansas City, a 1.5-point favorite in this game. I'm not giving anything away. Schubert 6 coming up, the leftovers to close this program. I will tell you exactly my picks, my 6-point play and my 5-point play, but I'm not giving anything away right here. This is what this game comes down to. These are the two narratives about these teams. The Kansas City Chiefs, are they inevitable? The moment they got home field advantage in the playoffs, everybody just kind of assumed they're going to the Super Bowl. They don't lose at home in the playoffs. They don't lose in home under Mahomes. They're 8-0 at home this season. They're destined. The three-peat is on the table. And they feel inevitable, right? They feel like a team that is destined to go back because, let's face it, they're 15-2. And I don't know how many Chiefs games you watch start to finish, but I know you listened to the NFL Rewind. I know you listened to the NFL Look Ahead. I know you listened to the Schubert 6, and we over and over and over again told you this Chiefs team, I don't know how they just keep getting away with it. They didn't cover at home for like a month and a half. A blocked field goal here, a missed field goal there, a game-winning drive here, a game-winning drive there. They survived scare after scare after scare. Carolina, Denver, just you name it, they were able to somehow find a way to win. The Raiders, every single time they were going to hit defeat early in the season while they were still undefeated, they got out of it. They found a way, they pulled a rabbit out of their hat, and they won the football game. And so when you're up against that, when you're facing that, it almost feels inevitable because you know that in the postseason, they're going to flip a switch. They're going to all of a sudden find that extra level that maybe they didn't show in the postseason because you know what? We saw this last year. It's exactly what they did last year. It was a pedestrian, a mediocre by their standards regular season. And they got into the postseason, and what happened? Travis Kelce all of a sudden didn't look old. Patrick Mahomes found something, and they went on a run to win back-to-back Super Bowls. So they get to the postseason this year, and you're thinking the same thing. They have home field again, Arrowhead Invitational. You look at the rest of the AFC, and you're thinking, here we go again. They're just going to keep finding a way. So that's what's on the Chiefs side. And I don't know where you fit on this. I don't know where you stand on this. Are you wanting to see the three-peat? Are you done with the Kansas City Chiefs? Are you done seeing Mahomes and Kelce and Reed and Taylor Swift? Are you done with it all? I don't know. Personally, I'm good. I'm okay. I'd like to see a new matchup in the Super Bowl. I'd like to see some new teams have a chance to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. I understand greatness and three-peat and dynasty, and it would allow us to unlock, I think, because I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're able to have this conversation, but you win 3 in a row, I think we can then set the stage where we get to have the Brady-Mahomes conversation, where Mahomes is on pace to track down Brady and become the greatest quarterback of all time. I think you unlock that conversation. I don't think we're there yet, but I think that conversation gets unlocked if he wins his 3rd in a row. What would that be, his 4th overall if he wins this one? So 4 overall, 3 in a row. What, 3 behind Brady at that point? If my math is correct on it being 4, yeah, you start to, you enter that upper echelon of conversation. So that's what's on the Chiefs side. And then on the Bills side of things, it's 2 things. Can you finally be the team that takes down the Kansas City Chiefs? Can you go into Arrowhead and beat them? Can you go in there and end this run? Can you make sure they don't three-peat? Can you do that? But more importantly, can you finally get over the hump? Because this team in the playoffs, this team has been your Achilles heel. This team, this stadium, this environment in the postseason has been the thing that has denied you of greatness. It has denied Josh Allen the ability to play on the biggest stage that football offers. This has been the team that has denied the Buffalo Bills, who have been one of the best teams in the last half decade plus in the AFC. They haven't been to the biggest stage in football. They haven't been there. Why? In large part because of the quarterback and the coach and the team that they will be facing on Sunday. So can they be the team that dethrones the Kansas City Chiefs and their dynasty and stops them from a three-peat? But can they also do what they have never been able to do? They've beaten them in the regular season a bunch. Haven't beaten them in the postseason. I think it's 3 in a row that the Chiefs have over the Bills in the postseason. So can they get over that hump? And I've told you all year long, I think this is the best offense that Josh Allen has had in Buffalo. I think this is the best he's looked in Buffalo. Potentially could win another MVP. They jumped out to a 21-10 lead last weekend against Baltimore. This team has been very impressive all year long. Do they embrace that? Or when they walk in on Sunday, does that little thought in the back of their mind about what's happened in years past creep back in? Now, they're not going to have Tyler Rapp, it looks like, for this game on Sunday. Huge blow to their defense. But James Cook has been awesome this year. Josh Allen's been awesome this year. In fact, of the two quarterbacks, Josh Allen's had a better season than Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen has been the better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. There's a reason why Patrick Mahomes was my third best quarterback remaining. A couple of weeks ago, I told you I thought Lamar and Josh were head and shoulders above Pat this season. And so Josh Allen is going to be the best quarterback on the field on Sunday because I think he's been playing the best. But the problem is, at any moment, at any time, Patrick Mahomes can turn in to Patrick Mahomes. And all he needs to do is do it once. Do it one time, and he denies the Bills yet again. And if he denies the Bills yet again, there are a lot of question marks that surround the Bills moving forward. So from the two games perspective, right, from both of these games, the Commanders, Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, I am much more intrigued by Bills, Chiefs because truthfully, it feels more high stakes, right? It feels like there's more that comes out of a loss for either team. If the Chiefs lose, it's the end of their chance of a three-peat, right? It's over, done. The dynasty it gets, at least for right now, crushed. And then they can try to rebuild next season. But I guarantee you, just you wait, if they lose on Sunday and they are not going for a three-peat, all the people are going to come out of the woodwork. Oh, this is the beginning of the end. Oh, this is the start of the meltdown. See, we talked about it during the year that they were getting away with it, and they finally got by a better team than them in Buffalo, and this is where we start to see somebody else take over. Trust me, you're going to see the think pieces, the column inches, the podcast episodes, the radio airwaves, you name it, TV time is going to be dedicated to is the Chiefs dynasty over. Guaranteed. Starts on Monday. Now, it's still Patrick Mahomes. It's still Andy Reid, so we're not going to have that conversation on Monday. But if the Chiefs lose, there is a conversation of what's next for them. How do they adjust? If the Bills lose, the question is, if not now, when? If you couldn't do it this year when the Chiefs, despite being 15-2, were probably at their weakest, if you were probably at your strongest, if you couldn't walk into Kansas City and do it now, when are you going to be able to do it? And truthfully, I think there are going to be a lot of people that will officially give up on the Buffalo Bills ever threatening the Kansas City Chiefs if they don't win this game on Sunday. Washington loses, great story, great first rookie season for Jaden Daniels, great first year for Dan Quinn, awesome year for Cliff Kingsbury, might get a head coaching gig out of the deal. And trust me, we've got a lot of head coaching updates that we're going to get to over the next two segments to close out today's show. But you have a lot to be excited about. You have a lot to be excited about even in a loss. And if the Eagles lose, there'll be a lot of people that say, yeah, kind of expected it, right? Team that had drama all year long. And people would be excited for Washington. There's a lot more high stakes in Buffalo and Kansas City. There's a lot more on the line, win and lose. And so both games are going to be entertaining. Both games are going to be exciting. But yeah, 4:30 Sunday afternoon, Bills Chiefs. I'll be there. I'll be there. I don't have a rooting interest in the game, and I'll be nervous. I don't have a rooting interest in Bills Chiefs, and I will be living and dying with every play. Because I know that those two fan bases, because listen, this is not the first time these two teams have hooked up in a big spot. They know, the fan bases know. Chiefs fans know how much this means to the Bills. Bills fans know what this means to the Chiefs. Everybody knows. Everybody can look at each other, and there can be, you can hate each other during the game, but there's at least that nod of, we know, we get it, we understand what we're doing here, we understand how important this is. And so I'm not giving away the pick. Not telling you who I'm picking, but just know that's the game of the weekend. That's the one I'm more looking forward to. 480-864-1060, the phone number for you to hop in and join the conversation. How about a little more football on the other side of the break? The ultimate about face, seemingly out of nowhere. And a familiar face is coming back to football. That's next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Well, we got some head coaching news in the NFL. 2 more vacancies filled. And you thought the Phoenix Suns drama was bad. How about what's going on in Jacksonville and in Tampa Bay today? So Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, or the former offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, has officially agreed to an about face. Because if you remember yesterday's leftovers, we told you that Liam Cohen told the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm good. I'm fine. I not getting along with the GM there, Trent Baalke. I don't want to take this gig. I'm going to go back to Tampa, and I've got a brand new deal, right? They were going to pay him a ton. We've now learned he was going to be the highest paid assistant in NFL history. It's going to be a ton of money for him to go back to Tampa Bay, and that was it. And in response to that, Shad Khan, the owner of the Jags, maybe looked inward and said, you know what? I got to make a change here. And fired Trent Baalke. They were going to conduct a new search. Robert Saleh was going to get another interview. They were going to expand their coaching search. And I said wrongly, clearly, like, okay, they're just going to start over. They're not going to have to hire a GM. They can maybe wait. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury's in play there, right? To pair him up with Trevor Lawrence. And in the span of like 24 hours, where are we at today? Liam Cohen has agreed to be the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he has left Tampa Bay. It has been a wild ride in Tampa. So after they gave him that offer to be the highest paid assistant, and there's a great story, I believe it was on Sports Illustrated, that went through everything that has happened. So an offer was put in front of Liam Cohen to stay in Tampa. Tampa really wanted him, and they said, what's it going to take for you to not do this, to not entertain any of these offers? And apparently, Liam Cohen slid a number across the table and said, this is what I need. Okay. The Bucs GM went to ownership, put the number in front of them, came back, and boom, we're going to do that. We're going to pay you what you asked for. And they said, hey, you can still take that first interview, but this deal is contingent on you not taking a second interview. And then that's where all the drama started. Because he takes the first interview, he makes it to the second round, he then chooses to apparently stay, withdraws his name from consideration, but then the GM situation changes there. And then all of a sudden, now Jacksonville is a different situation than it was 24 hours ago. And what transpired since then is a lot of back and forth, but ultimately, Tampa kept trying to reach out to Liam Cohen, kept trying to communicate with him, see where he was at, and stuff came up. He wasn't answering. Boom, now he is the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tampa Bay, not happy with the way all of this has panned out. Jacksonville, I think, got to be ecstatic, over the moon. They got their guy. The guy who 2 days ago withdrew his name from consideration, 2 days ago said, I'm good. 2 days ago said, I don't want to be here. Now he's going to be linked up with Trevor Lawrence. And so, truthfully, I don't think we're done with this story. I think this is just the beginning. And there's a great, again, I believe it is Sports Illustrated, but a great story that breaks down everything that occurred, the communication channels, all of the repeated efforts by Tampa to reach out to him. And I don't know. I don't think you need to hear this from me. I don't know if you care to hear this from me. I have no problem with what Liam Cohen did. When you withdrew your name from consideration and you had that deal in front of you from Tampa to be the highest paid assistant, that was under a certain set of circumstances. Those circumstances changed. You didn't want to take that job. You withdrew because you didn't think you were going to get along with the GM. The GM situation changed. You had a change of heart. That's a very reasonable thing to want. Everybody's dream when they get into coaching is to ultimately end up becoming a head coach. Everybody wants one of 32. And Liam went down this path to try to be one of 32, and it just didn't feel like the right fit. So he wanted to go back, but he wanted to go back and maybe get a raise and maybe feel comfortable and want to be there in Tampa. And then you know what? The situation changed. And so then he decided that he wanted to go in a different direction, that he wanted to go to Jacksonville. I got no problem with it. I don't have a single issue with a guy trying to chase his dream and trying to become an NFL head coach. Was it handled the best way? No. But that's not all Liam Cohen's fault. Jacksonville getting cold feet after he said no, after he withdrew, saying, you know what, then don't worry, we will fire the GM. Come back, please come back. Oh, we know you withdrew your name, but please, we're going to do this, this, and this for you. Things change. That's different. So now, let's look at the lay of the land. Jacksonville's got their guy, Liam Cohen, to work with Trevor Lawrence. The Jets have their guy in Aaron Glenn. The Patriots have their guy in Mike Vrabel. The Bears have their guy in Ben Johnson. The Cowboys appear to have their guy potentially in Brian Schottenheimer. And now the Raiders have their guy because today they finalized a multi-year deal. I believe it is a 3-year deal with an option for a 4th year with soon-to-be 74-year-old Pete Carroll. Why am I bringing this up here as its own segment? I will tell you why. Because I think this move means something very specific for the Las Vegas Raiders. They are bringing in a coach that is 74 years old. 73, about to be 74, I believe. But it's 73 years old. You're not bringing in Pete Carroll to oversee a rebuild. Pete Carroll is not coming in to oversee a rebuild. Pete Carroll is coming in there to try to build a winner, try to build it quickly, to try to get into the playoffs, to try to restore the Las Vegas Raiders as a perennial player in the AFC. And so you know what I think this means? And maybe I'm connecting dots that don't exist yet. they're not going to answer the phone. Okay, they'll answer the phone. They're going to quickly hang up on you. They're not trading Max Crosby. Max Crosby's not available. You don't sign up if you're Pete Carroll to take this job knowing, hey, you know what, Pete? You know what we think our plan's going to be this offseason? You know what we're going to do? We're going to trade our best player in Max Crosby. Is that all right with you? We're going to get some draft picks, and we're not really going to have a ton of talent on defense, and we don't have a quarterback on offense, and well, we don't have a wide receiver really anymore because we traded away Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs isn't here anymore, and this roster is kind of in a state of flux. And so the one good player that we do have, we're gonna trade that guy. Is that all right with you? Do you want to sign up for the next 3 years? No, that's not how the conversation went. In fact, Pete Carroll probably took the job in large part because he has a player like Max Crosby. He knows he can build that defense around. Russell Wilson's a free agent this offseason. You don't think the Las Vegas Raiders might be looking for a bridge quarterback to help them find some stability? You don't think Russ might be there? Steelers won double-digit games last year. Russ helped them get there. There might be a reunion there in Seattle or in Vegas for the two guys that used to be in Seattle. But my immediate gut reaction to all of this is Pete Carroll is not going to oversee a rebuild. Now, if there is an argument to be made that if you want to turn this around quickly, you trade Max Crosby, you get back a Hall, you get back a bunch of picks, and you're able to very quickly bring in a bunch of young talent. There's an argument to that. But I just don't think that aligns with hiring Pete Carroll as your head coach. You hire Pete Carroll as your head coach to be almost a caretaker for this team for the next couple of years, and you want to see some success. You want to see this team turn it around. Guess what? You know who's going to help turn it around? You know who's going to help be a large part of the reason why they turn it around? Max Crosby being on your defense. And so I think this move today to hire Pete Carroll as the next head coach ends any dream that we might have here in Arizona of Max Crosby coming to the Valley, of Max Crosby being the big fish solution to the Cardinals' pass rush woes. I think it's over. I think you have to look in a different direction. Myles Garrett, Jeffrey Simmons, maybe Micah Parsons, although I think that's very unlikely. You have to look in a different direction. I think Max Crosby, he was kind of already off the table. It was already made clear, at least from the past regime, that they weren't interested in trading Max. But I just think when you hire a 73-year-old head coach, you're not interested in a rebuild. You're not interested in taking 3 years to get back to a certain point. You might be willing to do 1 year, but not 3. Pete Carroll wants to find success here pretty quickly. Pete Carroll doesn't want to get to the end of this contract and not have a playoff berth, not have a winning season, and then set it up for the next guy. That's not what Pete Carroll took this job for. And so I just think that outcome for the Cardinals, off the table. Got to look in a different direction. So now, officially, every job opening. Oh, you know what? I forgot about the Saints. The Saints are in there as well. Now we're down to 2. Dallas and New Orleans, the last 2 teams looking to hire a head coach. Dallas looks like they're very close to making it Brian Schottenheimer. And so we'll see if they get that deal over the finish line here before we're back in the fold on Monday. But then it's just the Saints. And there is sort of a benefit to being last. Now, there's no rush. You might have wanted Aaron Glenn, he picked New York. You might have wanted Ben Johnson, he picked Chicago. But you know what? Nobody else is standing in your way. So you want to interview Mike McCarthy? Go right ahead. You want to keep interviewing other candidates? Go ahead. You're not in a rush because nobody else is going to beat you to the guy. If you find your next guy in this process, there's nobody else that is going to be able to jump the line and beat you to that coach. It's you and Dallas. Dallas appears to be lasered in on Brian Schottenheimer, maybe even Deion Sanders, maybe Kellen Moore. But either way, I don't think any of those guys are in play for the New Orleans Saints, so they can sit back, they can maybe relax a little bit, and they can take their time to make sure they get their next head coach. Maybe they're waiting to see if Cliff Kingsbury gets knocked out in the playoffs and he can start taking some interviews here. Because he said he won't interview while the team is still playing. So the only way he becomes available is if they lose this Sunday. So we are down to 2, and potentially we'll be down to 1 by the end of today, by the end of the weekend. And then we can start having those big picture offseason conversations across the board. We've got the leftovers coming up on the other side. And this is a very special edition of the leftovers because this edition of the leftovers includes something that normally on a Friday would get its own segment because we would be making 6 of them. We would be making 6 picks. Well, this week, because there's only 2 games, we're only making 2 selections. So instead of it getting its own little time slot, it's getting crammed in here. We're putting it in to the leftovers. So, a big menu today. We've got the 2 Schubert 6 picks to make. I've got 2 NBA stories for you. I've got a Shohei Ohtani MLB story for you. It is a jam-packed edition of The Leftovers as we close up this edition. We close up this week on the show. Appreciate you being here. 480-864-1060 if you want to get in a last call before we are out of here, before we pass things off to Jim Rome at the top of the hour. But as I mentioned, a jam-packed edition of The Leftovers that includes our 2 Schubert 6 picks for the weekend. Next, the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Back to wrap up today's edition of the lunch break. Appreciate you being here. KDUS AM 1060. My last reminder for you, download the KDUS AM 1060 app today so you can take the station with you on the go. You want to listen to the Jim Rome Show? He's coming up next, 1 to 4 here on KDUS AM 1060. Boom. Just open up the app, hit the play button, you're there. You don't need to be listening in the car. You can take the app with you on the go. So download the KDUS AM 1060 app today. So we've got a lot to get to in the leftovers, and I want to make sure that the one thing we do, we don't miss anything in the leftovers. The one thing we can't miss is the Schubert 6 picks. So we'll do those here off the top. My 2 plays for this weekend. So all we have left is a 6-point play and a 5-point play. So these are the big dogs. I mean, we got to make sure we hit on these because we are allocating the top point values to them. So we will start with our 5-point play. And our 5-point play is in the NFC Championship game. And I laid out to you the recipe, the case that you would have to make for a road upset, for the Washington Commanders to walk into Lincoln Financial Field, to walk into Philadelphia and pull off an upset and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And we talked about the coach, and we talked about the running game. We talked about the defense and needing the quarterback to make those 5 to 7 plays or throws throughout the course of the game. And we laid it out for you, and we said, recipe, I don't know if we have these ingredients. We do have the quarterback that can do more than just 5 to 7 plays, though, and so maybe we've got Gordon Ramsay cooking the meal. And so we can potentially not have all this other stuff, but we have the one main ingredient, and we can pull off the upset. So we laid out for you, the case. That being said, Jane Daniels is still a rookie. Jane Daniels going on the road for a team, or to a team, that he's played now for the 3rd time this season. 3rd time the Commanders are facing the Eagles. They're going to be familiar with him. And so for me, my 5-point play is I love Jane Daniels. And I said it in hour number 1. He is an outlier. He can give you more than 5 to 7 big plays or big throws. he can make 10 to 12 of those that could potentially overlook everything else, your other faults in the recipe of pulling off the road upset. But here's my problem. He is still a rookie. I still have the first-year coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury. I have Dan Quinn, who, yes, he's done a great job there, but I remember some of his faults when he was a head coach the last time around. And so until I see it, and if Jaden Daniels had a little bit more experience, I would feel a lot better about it. I'm taking the Eagles -6. That's where the number is at right now. I will take the Eagles -6 as my 5-point play. My 6-point play is pretty simple. I'm just going to look at history. I'm just going to look at the way things have gone for both of these teams in the playoffs in the past. I'm going to look at what has plagued the Bills year after year after year in the postseason. And I'm going to look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm going to see how they've been successful year after year after year in the postseason. I'm going to look at what happens when Kansas City hosts AFC Championship games. I'm going to look at what happens when the Chiefs play the Bills in the AFC playoffs. I'm going to look at what happens in the playoffs when Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes hook up, when they are battling it out, when they are dueling for a spot to go to the ultimate stage in all of football. I'm going to look at all of that, and I am going to align with history. I'm going to align with a team that hasn't lost at home this season. I'm going to align with a team that seemingly has the Bills' number in the playoffs. I'm going to align with the team that has the pressure of a three-peat, but doesn't have the pressure that the Bills face, knowing that the fan base is kind of expecting them to lose. You might go into it thinking that your team's going to win, but you know deep down, we don't win in Kansas City. So that thought, you've been thinking about it all week. And so I'm going to align with the team that doesn't have that thought, that doesn't have that worry, that doesn't have that extra layer of pressure applied to them. So for me, this was simple. It was the easiest pick all week. The number's been stuck here all week long. My 6-point play, Kansas City -1.5. So quick recap, even though we don't really need to do the recap because it's only 2 plays. But Schubert 6, Conference Championship Edition, Philadelphia -6. The Commanders have the quarterback that is the perfect for the recipe of pulling off a road upset. But they don't have the other ingredients, and he is still a rookie. So I'm going to lean to the home team, the Eagles -6 as the 5-point play. Our 6-point play, I'm going to go with history. I'm going to go with trends. I'm going to go with what I've seen when these two teams have met in the postseason in the past. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs -1.5. Easy, simple, done. Conference championship week of the Schubert 6. My prediction, Chiefs, Eagles playing in the Super Bowl. That's simple. There you have it, the Schubert 6. So couldn't do a whole segment on that because it's only 2 picks, but there you have it, the Schubert 6 4-week conference championship week before the Super Bowl. Kevin Durant named a starter to the All-Star team. Devin Booker not named to the All-Star team, not named as a starter, but congrats to Kevin Durant back in there. We gave you an update on that a couple of weeks ago. We told you what the votes were for Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but last night they announced all of it, and Kevin Durant named a starter for the All-Star game. Now, speaking of the NBA, Adam Silver, commissioner, who was in Europe, talked about that the league has serious interest in a European league, that the office of the NBA is investigating a standalone European league that would be separate from the NBA. Silver said that he thinks that the Euro League, which is an 18-team top league in Europe, is not necessarily capitalizing on the growth of basketball globally the way that they should be. And so the NBA might want to waltz right in. Quote, while Europe continues to develop some of the very best players in the world, many of our most recent MVPs, of course, are European, we think that the commercial opportunity has not kept pace with the growth of the game, end quote. Now, the Spurs and Pacers are going to play, they're playing in Paris, the first of 2 games that are in Paris. So a potential European expansion to the NBA. Now, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a lot of hurdles to jump through. What would it look like? But the NBA, they've always been at the forefront of this. The one thing I have always said about Adam Silver, I tend to think he is the best commissioner. Why do I think Adam Silver is the best commissioner of the 4 major sports? No, not because he feels like he's the most likable, but because of the 4, between him, Roger Goodell, Rob Manfred, Gary Bettman, of those 4, the big 4 sports, big 4 professional leagues in the United States, Adam Silver seems to always be at the forefront. He seems to always be one step ahead. He seems to be on the cutting edge. He seems to be willing to push the boundaries quicker and to different places than the other leagues are willing to go. Baseball, Rob Manfred, you know the problems that he has trying to bring the game into the modern era. Roger Goodell, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? You're making a ton of money. And so you can flirt with putting some games on some streaming services, and you can flirt with putting some games internationally and making some money that way, but wholesale, over-the-top changes, not really in the cards. Adam Silver pushes the envelope. Adam Silver willing to think cutting edge. Guess what? An entire European league for the NBA that obviously would be separate. That's cutting edge. That's different. Now, Silver's got a lot of hoops to jump through. Has to get the 30 owners on board, and you have to figure out who's going to run these teams. Is the NBA going to operate the league? How is this all going to play out? But these comments by Adam Silver show very clearly that the NBA is interested in expansion. And they're not just interested in expansion in the traditional sense. They're not just interested in expansion in the new markets, like Las Vegas, putting a team back in Seattle, or just adding teams in the United States. That they are interested in growing the game internationally because, let's face it, he's right. Think of who the bright stars in the game are. Luka Doncic, Victor Wembanyama. Those are your two young stars. Those are just two of them. You got MVPs that are European. You are growing the game internationally. And if the EuroLeague is not going to step in, if the EuroLeague is not going to invest, if the EuroLeague is not going to spend the money, resources to grow it comparatively to the way the NBA is growing, well, then the NBA says, you know what we're going to do? We'll just march right in. We'll march right in here and we'll set up shop. We'll take the NBA infrastructure that we're really good at, and we'll set it up here, and we'll get the teams, and we'll get the owners, and we'll get the players, and we'll make a ton of money. Because if you're not going to do it, if you're going to miss opportunity after opportunity, we'll just hop right in. We'll just jump right through the hoops. That's what we'll do. We'll just storm through the gates. So I'm very intrigued by this. Very intrigued by what Adam Silver might have up his sleeve with an NBA Europe League. Very quickly here. Very quickly, baseball story to close up the leftovers, to close up this week here on the show. Yesterday, some audio got released. Some audio got leaked. And the audio was of Shohei Ohtani's former interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara. And what that audio showed, that audio recording that was released by the federal prosecutors, was audio that they say shows that he was impersonating Shohei Ohtani in an attempt to wire the money from his bank account. And I listened to the audio. Listened to it in the car yesterday, driving home. And it is chilling to see the efforts that Ippei Mizuhara went through to try to wire this money because of the gambling debts that he owed. And there's a transcript. I read the transcript, read everything, and it is chilling. Now, the reason why this is coming out, well, the federal prosecutors are recommending a 57-month prison sentence for Mizuhara, the former interpreter, and they released this audio file in reference to that. Now, Mizuhara's attorney are saying that he suffered from a gambling addiction, and they are asking for an 18-month sentence. Now, he was fired, remember, around March of last year, so a little less than a year ago, after he was found to be making wire transfers from Shohei Ohtani's bank accounts to an illegal bookmaker, and he pled guilty back in June to bank fraud and filing a false tax return, and it ended up being $17 million that he stole from Shohei Ohtani to pay off gambling debts. And this, from the get-go, everybody felt some type of way about the story. There were people out there that felt like this was just cover, right? That this was really Shohei Ohtani who was doing this, and MLB clearly didn't want it to come out, and so Ippei was the fall guy, right? Because there was the changing stories. There was all of that just back and forth, not knowing what was true, what wasn't. It was a very weird situation. Well, and MLB very quickly, if you'll remember, very quickly said, no wrongdoing from Shohei Ohtani. No wrongdoing. And everyone's like, really? Like, that quickly, that definitively you can say it? Well, if they had access to this tape, if they had access to this audio, it's very clear why they were able to quickly come to the resolution that Shohei Ohtani had nothing to do with this. Very clear. Because this audio, you don't hear Shohei Ohtani, you just hear Ippei on the phone with the bank, and this is why when they tell you at the beginning that these calls are being recorded, you probably shouldn't be doing something illegal on the calls that are being recorded. Just my advice. Very easy to then just play the recording for everybody and say, this is what's happening. So 57 months is what they are recommending, and that's the reason why this audio got released yesterday. Oh, man, great week of shows here. A lot of Suns talk. I'm sure the Suns talk will continue between now and the NBA trade deadline. But appreciate everybody being here for this week of shows. Everybody enjoy the conference championship games this weekend. Producer Dylan, thank you for all that you do. Jim Rome next, 1 to 4 here on KDUS AM 1060. Everybody, have a great weekend. Talk to you on Monday. See ya.